Vogue. Strike pose. Vogue. Tap into the psychology of engagement and more. This is where we talk about life, learning, and everything in between. This is the Lifelong Podcast, a show for those of you who love to ask why. It's because we're marketers. It's because we're coaches. It's because we're change makers. Each week, we dive into the big questions and explore the psychology of engagement with strategies, tactics, and special guests along the way. Now, here's your guide, the visibility hacking queen herself, Coach Molly. Hey, visibility hackers, and welcome back to the Lifelong Podcast. This season, we are diving into the psychology of engagement, psychology for marketers. Why? Why not? Why? Because community means our people are learning better, deeper. They're able to actually habitualize what you're trying to teach them so that they can move forward and progress and grow with you and your movement. Oh, yeah. So we've been talking about conditioning. We've been talking about behavior. And today we're going to talk about that bridge that exists between the totally behaviorist world where our environment has an impact on us and everything we do is conditioned by that environment, and the bridge on to the other side where it's just our thoughts in our head and it's totally meta. So today we're talking about social learning theory and how people learn. And it's kind of exciting, I think. But before we dive into that, make sure that you are subscribed on YouTube, on the Three Pines Leadership YouTube page, because you want to see us in beautiful video format. Or you can rate us, subscribe, like us, share us on any and all of your favorite podcast platforms. We'd love to stay in touch with you guys. And if you haven't already, make sure that you become a visibility hacker, an official visibility hacker at visibilityhacking.com, because that's where the party goes down. All right, social learning theory. Social learning theory was the idea of this guy called Albert Bandura. Albert Bandura. All right, so social learning theory, it was this idea from this guy called Albert Bandura. I suck at names. But what matters is that he taught us that people learn from one another. They learn from observing. They learn from imitating each other. You know, copying is the best form of flattery. And they learn from modeling each other's behavior. And that is why it's so important to build frameworks and modelable behavior within your programs. That way, your people are able to actually get the success you're trying to get for them. So this theory has been called, as I mentioned earlier, the bridge between behaviorist and totally cognitive psychologies and theories, because it encompasses attention, memory, and motivation. Sounds cool, eh? So there are conditions that are necessary for effective modeling. So we actually have to think about these 4 criteria when we're thinking about our programs. Are we designing modelable behaviors and models within our programs? So the things are attention, retention, reproduction, and motivation. So what do those mean? So the first thing is attention, which means how are they actually paying attention? We do this in Live Academy by talking about modes of engagements and methods of attention grabbing and attention keeping when we're delivering our content in video form. So that would be attention. How do we keep their visual and cognitive attention on us? How do we keep their eyeballs, but also how do we keep their brains engaged in what we're actually teaching them? The next thing is retention. So we talked about this when we talked about learning curves. The idea of how much are we actually remembering from those lessons that we're learning. This can be in the form of, practically in your course could be a simple framework that they could follow, a visual diagram that is a cue to as a memory aid for something. It's modelable, and it's reproducible. That's the important thing, because the next key is reproduction. So that means, can this person actually reproduce that behavior or that tangible result? That is the most important, right? You're going to fail as a business, you're going to fail as a movement, you're going to fail as a change maker if you're unable to actually achieve results for your people. So build in frameworks and behaviors and schedules and programs that help people retain that keep their attention, retain that information, are enabled and empowered to reproduce that behavior. And then finally, number 4 is motivation, because once they start to see results, then they're going to continue to be motivated to grab more and more and more from that result. How awesome is that? They're going to be personally, internally motivated to get more tangible results, which to you as a marketer and a course designer means that you're able to get more awesome testimonials. You're able to see your people grow in an amazing way, which then reflects so awesomely on your brand, your product, and your movement. But another thing to keep in mind when we talk about social learning theory is that learning something, learning a skill, does not necessarily mean that there's going to be a change in behavior. So remember back a couple episodes ago when we were talking about how we need to turn behaviors into predictable, habitual habits, right? We want this behavior to become normal and automatic to our people. That way they can move on to the next tangible result, achieving that next goal, growing in whatever form you're helping them grow. So if we understand that just because we're teaching people the skills, just because they're able to learn, does not equate to actually having that change in behavior. That's why it's so important to create those conditions and make that pathway, that bridge for them that much easier. Create as many resources as you can, not with the intention to just create for the sake of creating, but if you're actively listening to your people, if you're actively out there consuming what their problems are, where they're stuck, what their obstacles are, and looking and creating solutions for them, tailored and targeted to your people, that is how you're going to create that change in behavior. You're going to make it so easy for them to create that change in behavior. Every obstacle that could be in their way, you are going to create a solution for, so that they don't have to think about it. And then when they get to that tangible result at the end, they've made that bridge, that behavior actually changes. Then we can talk about making it a deeper habit for them. But we have to actually cradle them for that first little bit while they're making that change of behavior. And we're going to do that by listening and nurturing them, by listening to what those problems are and creating things that will help them model that better behavior. How cool is that? I think that's so cool. That, my friends, is social learning theory in a nutshell. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please share this episode with a friend or a team member or a business partner who you think would get some great information out of it, because ultimately my goal is to inspire you guys to build deeper and better communities by learning how to communicate better, by getting more visible, by keeping people's attention, by understanding these basics of psychology and how they apply to you as course creators and coaches and non-traditional educators and marketers, how we can apply these so that you guys get amazing success, not only for you, but for your businesses and for your people. That's how we change the world, my friends. Oh, I'm Coach Molly from visibilityhacking.com. It's been an absolute pleasure. I will see you in our next episode. And until then, remember, I love you. Be excellent to each other.